So sometimes we tend to think that marketing it's a complicated thing, it's not for me. Oh my god, it's so confusing, so many things to know. Or maybe it's so easy, it's just posting some things on Facebook and that's it. I'm done with marketing and this will work for me in a couple of hours. So it's not like that. And today we're going to talk about this amazing book from Jenna Tiffany, Marketing Strategy, Overcome Common Pitfalls and Create Effective Market. So if you want to know a little bit more about the topic, stay tuned because we will be talking about this in a while. Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Special Marketing Live Show. Today, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and also on Amazon. And by the way, if you are watching on Amazon, this book it's highlighted in the carousel. If you're not watching this on Amazon, you feel free to join. Just type marketing.live. But if you stay on other social media platforms, we will have a nice gift for you. Okay. So today we're going to talk about this really nice and practical workbook. I like to call this book a workbook because it's that kind of book that it should be always close to our hand so we can grab it and learn because there's some nice knowledge here and really practical. This book from Jenna Tiffany. She's waiting in the basement, hopefully with a glass of water and a cookie.
Or a glass of
Hello.
wine. Hi. I'm here.
How are you, Jenna?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I can share the story because you were guest with my friend Pedro Caramires some months ago, and he told me, "Oh, I have some nice books. Do you want to have one?" And I said, "Of course." And I thought, okay, this is a really nice book. Let me ask Gina if she wants to join me as well, because this is a really nice book to talk about. And also, it's on sale on Amazon. So let me bring, I don't know if you have the same expression there in English, but we have this in Portuguese, vamos juntar o útil ao agradável. I don't know if you already know what that means.
Vamos is let's go. So I'm not sure on the rest.
It's kind of putting together the pleasant and the useful.
Okay. That's a bit of a strange thing. I don't think we have that in English.
And by the way, let me share on the comments, because Jenna sent me a really nice discount. So let me share it with you if you want to get the...
Yeah, please do buy away. It's 20% discounts for everyone.
Okay. Listening. And by the way, while I'm doing this, if you don't mind to introduce yourself.
Of course. Yeah, so I'm Jenna Tiffany. I am the author of my book, Marketing Strategy, that we're going to be talking about. And I also run and am the owner of a marketing consultancy. And we're based in both London and Lisbon in Portugal. And we work with a variety of clients on fundamentally strategy, but implementing email marketing campaigns, marketing mix campaigns that might have multiple tactics involved, and helping other brands make the most out of the tools that they already have, or actually recommending tools that might help them with their potential project or challenge that they have. And we work with clients all over the world, and we work with big, large corporations like Hilton, but we also work with much smaller startup organizations as well. So we're a small team of 10. And outside of running my business, I'm also a qualified teacher. So I teach marketing, I teach how to use Excel randomly, I teach data analysis, as I'm a real data geek, and I also teach broad business optimization as well.
Okay, perfect. I think I was thinking about asking you about how the idea of writing a book came to your mind, because I'm always curious, because let me do this. Let me share a secret. I want to write someday.
Okay.
I want to write a book as well. But one of the questions that always intrigue me is, why did you wrote this book?
Yeah, so I wrote the book for a couple of reasons. One, I thought, okay, I write lots of blog posts, I write lots of guides. Surely it would be quite easy to start pulling together lots of content and, almost bringing everything that I've written for the last 10 years and bringing it all together. And that sounded fairly straightforward. But I'll come back to that bit in a minute of how creating a book may not be as straightforward as you think. And my second stimulus for creating the book was because I was constantly coming across the misunderstanding and I think the confusion around the difference between strategy and tactics. And I'll be honest, I was getting very frustrated with the lack of understanding and the confusion, because regularly I'd be brought in as a consultant, my agency would be brought in to help brands, and we'd be asked to create a strategic plan, and we would be rushed to get to the end of the strategic plan. Okay, just tell us what we need to do. And that's obviously the tactical part. And less time spent on strategizing and actually really digesting the information and creating consumer research and competitor research. And so much less time spent on that and much more time on building, say, for example, an email campaign and spending days thinking about the subject line, but not actually spending that amount of time on the strategy. So I really wanted to create a book that clearly defined strategy, gave marketers and business owners a framework to be able to see all the stages in a strategy and be able to go backwards and forwards amongst those, and ultimately make it really clear the difference between strategy and tactics. I also teach lots of students that are in apprenticeships, and the number of times I've heard Gary V talks about tactics, Gary V talks about this, and so much about the tactics and not enough about the strategy.
Yeah, and I think it's I think one of the main reasons we don't okay, and sometimes the thing is, we listen people talking about strategy, but in fact they are talking about tactics,
Yes.
not strategy. I think this is the first problem we have.
Definitely.
And because, okay, my strategy is this and this, and I think this is not strategy, it's tactic.
Yeah, lots of that.
So I think the first reason, the first problem is this one. The second, I think it's because people want, as we like to say here in Portugal, I want the results for yesterday.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the thing is that and I think this is another, maybe due to this mediatic age we are living, because when we think, most of the people, when they think about marketing, they think about having those huge buzzwords, like huge campaigns with so creativity, and they don't think that you should build some important things before. What do your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree. I think the tactics is almost like the fun piece, right? Is the and that's that's the bit we want to do. And not to say that strategy can't be fun, because it can. And I've really tried to pull that through in my book, that even just spending a day or half a day just planning something before and thinking about your audience and thinking about your positioning, and then spending the time on the design and the creativity would make that design and creativity so much better and more effective than just diving straight into that. It doesn't have to be something that you spend months on. Lots of businesses don't have the resources to be able to do that. They don't have the budgets to be able to do that. And that's completely understandable. But what I also try to show in my book is the damage that happens when organizations just jump into tactics. So there's an example in my book where Burger King, huge organization, created an advert, a TV advert, and they used Google Home. And it was at the time when that had first come out. And it activated everybody's Google Home every time this TV ad started to play. And what they didn't foresee, because they hadn't necessarily planned it thoroughly enough or really thought about their audience and how people might interact with this TV ad, is that they were sourcing the information for the ingredients in their advert, which was then connecting to Google Home through Wikipedia. So you had lots of people listening to this TV ad. It was activating everyone's Google Home, and it was reciting the ingredients in their burgers to try and say that it was all from natural ingredients, less fat, and so on. But it was from Wikipedia. So what happened within the first 20 minutes of this TV ad going live is that everybody was going on Wikipedia, editing the ingredients of the Burger King burgers. And so it was all coming out with all this random information, not necessarily complimentary. It sounded really good on a tactical level, but didn't think about how the audience might interact with that. And that's where that planning piece and the strategy comes in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's, and another thing you mentioned is that you have that data background.
Yeah.
And I think there's a struggle. We mentioned before in off the situation, because we have sometimes or most of the times the struggle between the traditional marketing and the digital marketing, because they are struggling all the time, and I don't agree with that. But the other struggle sometimes we see, it's that people who talks about data all the time, and those who are a little bit more creative, intuitive, I don't know which one. How do you see this? And because I think it's important as well. Yes, looking at the data, but it's also intuition and creativity could be. It's the blending, right?
Yeah, I think it's good to have a mixture of both. I think sometimes there might be, from experience, your gut feel, but majority of cases you need to be able to analyze that data, and that's where the strategy piece comes in. As a strategist, that's why I love data, because I'll be asking the questions of, okay, but what about this, and what does that mean, and why did that happen, and really digging into that, because in all of this data that we're all collecting, and you mentioned earlier about buzzwords like big data and elements like that, we have access to lots and lots of data, but if we're not asking the right questions, we're not going to get the right answers for what we're looking for.
Yeah, and this is really important, because it's like having the right tools in front of you, the last tools,
Yeah.
and you don't know how to do. And we see this, for instance, with softwares like Photoshop, Premiere, and whatever. People knows from A to Z what each function does, and at the end of the day, they don't know how to edit a photograph or a video, which is funny. So I think it's the same with marketing. It's not just about tools; it's about working, knowing how do they work. And talking about tools, you brought this timeless tools that for me they they work all the time. Okay, it's a really straightforward, and even for people who doesn't have a marketing background, the 4 Ps or the 7 Ps or the SWOT analysis. This was something that from the beginning you wanted to have in the book, or at some point you thought, okay, maybe this could be a nice thing to put in the book as well.
Yeah, for me, they are the core fundamentals of what you need. They are my go-to tools. I will go to the 4 and 7 Ps. I will go to a SWOT out. I'll go to a pestle. There's lots of debate and conversation about the importance of SWOT and PESTEL. There's lots of differing opinions within the marketing world as to whether they're important or not. But I felt that they are important because they give you that rounded view. And for creating a marketing strategy, you need to make sure that you cover all bases, that you don't just focus on one area. And that's where the 4 and 7 Ps come in. So we don't just all focus on the discount price. We don't just all focus on the product. And we think about all the other areas, because hand on heart, I think the majority of organizations will probably focus on 1 or 2 of those Ps and maybe neglect a few others. And it's a good reminder, really. We're all human. We all forget things. We're all rushing around. So for me, they're good frameworks. We were chatting earlier, and I made a slight addition to the SWOT as a SWOT-L to add another layer onto that. So you could look at it from almost analyzing your own marketing resources and activity as well. So looking at what you could use that's existing, what you could leverage, and what your limitations are. Because when we're planning, if we have lots of limitations and we've got this amazing plan and it looks brilliant on paper, but actually we've got all these limitations where we just can't implement it, then it's not practical for the business. And so I thought it was important to bring those 3 key areas to a very traditional model.
Absolutely. And I think it's crucial, but there's something about the marketing mix that I want to ask you.
Okay.
Because there's a saying that completely kills me. And it is, if the product is really good, it doesn't need marketing. And believe me, this is like a bullet right to my heart.
Yeah.
Can you explain why this hurts me so badly?
I hope I can explain why it hurts you so bad. I thought you were going to say, can I explain why this saying exists? No, I can't explain that. Yeah, I've had this a few times. And, believe it or not, we've had clients that have brought us in for projects and then just said, we don't need marketing. We just have a brilliant product, but we're not selling anything. Okay. We've come across that a few times. Yeah. You could have the best product in the world, absolutely amazing, just mind-blowing. But if nobody knows it's there and no one knows it exists, then no one's going to hear about it, are they? And that's what marketing's for.
Well, but the thing is, the product, it's about marketing as well.
Well, fundamentally, yes. There's a great model, and it's an interesting point that you make, because in organizations, the product department is typically separate from marketing. And the most successful organizations I've worked with, the product team is either embedded in the marketing department or work very closely. They're not separate. So the marketing team is sharing the knowledge that they have about the consumer, about all of this analysis they have about behavior and what works, what doesn't, with the product team. And it creates a really powerful organization when you team those 2 areas together, because immediately you can see what might not be working for a customer or what their needs and wants are, and be able to build that into your product or your service. Incredibly powerful. But traditionally they are separate. And so that might be an area that, for those listening, that maybe you have some separate marketing and product areas there to try and bring together and share that knowledge with each other. But there's a great model in the book called Product Augmented, and it was created originally by Kotler, and it has 3 layers to a product. And it's a great way to bring out those key messages in marketing, but also a brilliant exercise to bring your marketing department along with your product department, if they are separate, bring in sales, customer service, and have that conversation, because you start to learn a lot of things about what your product does, rather than, okay, it just, it's a car, it goes from A to B. Okay, but what are all these other layers to this product? And it's a really, really effective model.
Yeah, and I love it as well. I remember when I was on college, I I've heard about this model when I was on financial marketing, I think, because we were talking about banking and insurance,
Mhm.
and they give nice examples about these different layers of product. And for me, this is really important because the thing is, if you're not listening to your customer, and this is marketing job, I think,
Yeah.
you won't be able to build. And again, and this okay, let me just finish my thought, and then I will go to the second one. It's hard to make the best, to have a great product if you're not doing really well the marketing. And this will lead me to the next point. And I was thinking about a famous, they usually they said that was Henry Ford saying this: if I was asking to my customers which they want, they will tell me a faster horse.
Mhm.
And this brings us to this marketing research, and I think market research, I think this was one of the things that maybe the digital marketing is brought a different and better approach, because we were we had that old model of focus group and
Mm. Yeah.
questions, and because sometimes we tend to not say the whole truth, or
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
and or at least not seeing the whole thing. And with digital marketing, we have more tools to understand, okay, they are not saying this, but they are doing this. So
Mm.
maybe the what do you think about these? Listen to your customers, important. Look at them, important, but see a little bit more further, or farther, to see like Apple made so good.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So, we can see lots of behavior, can't we? We don't necessarily have to ask the questions. Of course, we can ask the questions and get some answers and then validate that with the behavior that we're seeing, like you've mentioned. I think digital has brought another layer to researching customers and understanding who they are and being able to segment them, and be able to create a more tailored experience to customers. But within that, there is also the concerns around privacy, and it brings up a whole another conversation around that, and how some consumers are very willing to have their behavior analyzed, and other consumers would prefer not. So there's also that element to it as well now, which makes it a little bit more complex. But we like a challenge in marketing, I think, otherwise we would get bored. Keeps things fresh. So for me, that's the piece. You want to be able to validate it by analyzing behavior, but of course you need to sense check with your consumers and get that permission as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because sometimes, and the customer, it's kind of a hard character to understand. For instance, I worked on sales for 6 months or so, and sometimes it's hard to understand what actually the customer wants. And also, and this is something that it's one of the most challenging things on marketing, is how we can kind of differentiate our offer, but at the same time make it like big enough to make it profitable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, marketing isn't easy. It's
Not at
not,
all.
I know it's not you just start today and you create a Twitter ad and you run with it and you go and that's it. We've done it. We've done marketing. Marketing is an art. It's a skill. It's a lot of experience, a lot of test and learn. What will happen and work with one company and one customer set might not work with another. And that's what keeps, that's the challenge. And that is why, going back to our point at the beginning, the strategy piece is so important, because if everybody use the same tactics, exactly the same creative, exactly the same copy, and so on, they would get different results because they've got different audiences and their customers have different expectations from those companies as well. So we have to, build that in. And going back to what your limitations are, your customers might say that they want X, but actually you just can't deliver that. And so that's important as well, to set those expectations and boundaries, because the worst thing you'd want to do is ask customers, would you really like this? And they're like, yes, we'd love it. Oh, but we can't do that. Because then they're going to be pretty unhappy.
It's not for you.
Yeah, maybe not today.
Well, so you came with another thing that it's typical, and I don't know if you have any experience with Portuguese customers, but
A few.
there's this saying here in Portugal, it's for yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the Beatles song. Don't you think that this is another? And I think these days this is even worse to manage, because
Yeah.
we see so many Facebooks of life and so many companies which we think that they were a overnight success,
Yeah.
and sometimes we want to kind of uh, copy that and do the same. Do you feel that urgency as well, and how do you deal with that?
Yes, definitely feel that urgency. And even, now we're kind of coming out of COVID, hopefully going back to normal life. I feel like that urgency is probably going to be tenfold in about 3 months' time, with companies trying to reap, what they've potentially lost during the pandemic, and, being a really tough time for everybody. So I feel that. So in managing that can sometimes be a challenge, definitely. Really have to set those objectives at the beginning and almost break that down a little bit, because okay, we might, a client might say, okay, we desperately need this part, or we desperately need this campaign. Okay, so how do we break that down a little bit more? What can we deliver that will satisfy that need quickly? And then what are those short, medium, and long-term goals that are aligned to that? And that's typically how we work with clients as well. So we will look at quick wins. What can we do really quickly? And then what are the short, medium, and long term? So we have that strategic angle in everything that we do. But yeah, that immediate, we want this yesterday, is a regular that we get with most of our clients, Portuguese or not.
Yeah.
This is global.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that, and I think this it's also a great challenge, because some brands or some companies or even some professionals, they were struggling kind of going digital.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for some of them, they think that going digital, as I said at the beginning, is like building. Well, some of them, they think that it's just having a Facebook account or an Instagram
Yeah.
account, and that's it. But the thing is, and this is something. This is why I get so upset. Besides that thing that there's no need marketing if you have a great product. This is one of my heroes in my heart. But there's other, which is okay, if digital it's enough, and if you have a nice digital thing, there's no need on the physical marketing and whatever. And we can tell by these days, because we have this rush to uh, pivoting from almost all traditional to mostly digital. But there's the traditional there, because for instance, I get every day, or at least weekly, people from delivering from Amazon, for instance, and it's a huge digital player. But they have people, and they are the last contact I have,
Mhm.
and they can ruin. the whole experience if they don't do the proper job.
Yeah.
Do you have some customers that they kind of miss the importance of this whole uh, experience that digital marketing brought to the field?
Yeah, definitely. For both traditional and digital companies, optimizing that customer experience, I think, is probably one of the biggest challenges for companies. And there's a couple of reasons for that for larger organizations, but even for some traditional, smaller startup organizations, they have systems that aren't either fit for purpose, or they have lots of systems that don't talk to each other. And when you have that, you have lots of communications going out to clients in a variety of different ways, and they don't know what they are. They don't know what they're saying, what those communications are saying, because those communications aren't linked up. So they, in marketing departments, then they can't actually see that whole customer journey. And that is a huge challenge. That is a lot of organizations really struggle with that, small and big, old and new. I worked with a banking company and was providing training, and I went through their experience as a customer. And it just so happened that I came across a post on LinkedIn, and this person's father had unfortunately passed away, and she'd received a communication from this bank that I was giving training to. And she provided permission for me to share it. And the communication was automated. It had no humanity in there whatsoever, no compassion, no empathy. It was horrific. And I was in two minds. Do I share this with the brand or do I not? And I wasn't in there to audit or anything, but they wanted to look at trends. They wanted to look at consumer experience. And so I put it on the screen and I said, what do you think of this? So we dissected it, we analyzed it. They didn't know it was their company that had sent it. And I had, there was a member from every single department in this banking organization. So they dissected their own automated communication without knowing it was from them. So then when I revealed your company actually sent this, they were horrified. They didn't even know which system had sent that communication because there were so many different legacy systems not talking to each other. And that's the danger when companies jump in 2 feet to digital, or have lots of different tools and lots of different departments not talking to each other. Or you might think, okay, this tool looks brilliant, I'm going to get it, and not plan how you're going to use it or how it's going to fit into your existing infrastructure. And that's what then impacts the customer experience. So going back to your point about Amazon, everything could be amazing up until that point. And it's that final connection there that's made everything fall over. And that happens. There's probably not a single organization that's got that 100% right so far.
Absolutely. And it's
A big
impossible, I
challenge.
think. Yes.
I'm not sure it's impossible, but it's a huge challenge. And it's the other thing with it is that automation, typically a brilliant tool, and a massive benefit to us as marketeers and to the customer as well. But what tends to happen is that we set and forget. We set the automation, we don't review it, and it just keeps sending and sending and sending. And we saw a lot of this during the pandemic, where communications that had been automated pre-COVID were still getting sent during COVID because they hadn't been amended, were then completely irrelevant to the new context that we were all facing. And then it comes across very insensitive. And that's an organizational challenge as well as a marketing one.
Yeah, and I'm on the same boat because I think this automation thing it's nice, but it's if you don't again, it's a matter of sensitiveness
Yeah.
because if you don't use it properly, you may fall in that not so understandable approach because those automated answers and we are humans,
Yeah.
Sometimes.
No, and totally. I mean, just looking at live chats and the automation of the robot. I mean, do you ever get an answer that you needed from an automated robot? Because I don't think I ever have. Have you?
Uh, For instance, the other day, I'm not mentioning the brand. I was just willing to know. I had a shipment coming, and a not so understandable thing happened, and I wanted to understand what was happening. So
Mhm.
I went to the live chat, and it should be the robotic chat, the right way to call it.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know, where is my package? And they have those preset answers
Mhm.
or situations, and mine wasn't there. And I thought, oh my god. Then I call it, and out of office, and I said, oh my god, the world is conspiring against me.
Yeah.
but,
Did you find your
but
package?
yeah, but no, the thing is, uh, the the package was supposed to be here on the 20th, and
Oh, wow. Well, okay.
yes, January, I think. Yes, it was. And then the day went, nothing arrived. No, the 18th. Yes, 18th. So, and it came in the 20th. Okay. So I went to the tracking page, and I thought, okay, I put the code, and okay, it's on delivering. And I thought, and then at the end of the day, I got this message. The delivery guy we had some problems. There's no enough information to make the delivering. And I thought, okay, they waited to the end of the day to notice that there was
There was a
not
problem.
enough
Yeah.
information. So I wanted to know what was missing. And for me, the thing is, and this goes back to the automation, maybe they were on a delay or something, and they couldn't make it to
Yeah.
and instead of saying, okay, we couldn't make it, no, we had some. And the other day I was worried, okay, let me see what is missing, because I want to give them the information they were missing. And the very next day they arrived with the same information they had the day before.
So really the message was wrong.
So, but at the same time, this is a little bit frustrating,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day we understand what happened, okay, and we because this situation I was on, I was worried, okay, let me bring the information they want, like, which information they need from me, and let me provide them, and I couldn't
Couldn't do that. Yeah.
reach
That's
anyone, because
frustrating.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So this is something that for me, it's it's challenging as well, because sometimes
Mhm.
we tend to automate too much and too often. And sometimes and being honest is something that is important. And sometimes, for instance, when I do my live shows on Amazon, sometimes people come to me, oh, can you explain about that product? I'm sorry, I don't know. And yes, I think it's important as well. And for instance, those situations that sometimes they don't go that well, and
Mhm.
we know that
Yeah.
sometimes people, we for instance, we are in the same restaurant, on the same table. You ask, you order rice. I i eat the same rice as you, and for you it's okay, for me it could be salty.
Mhm.
And maybe for 100 people, the rice it's okay, but for me it's salty. Okay, so
Yeah.
we understand this. That's why I thought that maybe, I said, maybe it's a little bit impossible to please everybody.
Yeah, possibly. Pleasing everyone is very difficult, isn't it? But
Absolutely.
going back to your example, it's so important that we put ourselves in the customer's shoes, because there you've experienced that from a customer viewpoint. And so being able to experience the product that you might be selling or working on, or the service as a customer, you will then start to see all those communications and be able to almost take a step back and really experience it from their viewpoint, which would be slightly different from when you're working within the company on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. And this brings me back to a old job I had. And they had the whole warehouse with a robot which was bringing everything, and the owners, they were really proud about the robot, blah blah blah. But the thing is, as a customer, when I went there to buy something, I had to wait 20 to 30 minutes to my item get to me.
Mm-hmm.
So again, back to the
it might be great for them, a new shiny toy, but is it really enhancing the experience?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You mentioned, I was about to ask you that, but you mentioned right now. Thank you so much. The shiny new objects in the sky. And we see your thoughts on this, because we see, okay, now you have to be a TikTok, and now you have to whatever. What do you think about this? Because this is something it's a little bit annoying. For instance, let me share this. About, I don't know, maybe 7-8 years ago, there was a Portuguese marketing speaker, that usually he started his speeches asking, which are the 5 social media platforms that you should be? Like, there's no other way. You have to be there.
Yeah.
And by those times, I think, oh my God, this guy is a guru. He knows a lot. And today, I think, how the
maybe
hell?
not so much.
But what and having in mind strategy, and again, we come to this not so understandable thing, because we tend to hear so many people talking about strategy, but at the end of the day, we hear so many people like shifting, moving, pivoting all the time. And where's the strategy? So what do you think about these shiny objects?
Yeah, I'm like you. It really annoys me. It really frustrates me massively. And I actually talk about it in my book, about going after the shiny. And I've spoken about it for years and years and years, about the shiny is what I call it, where we see this amazing object and we think everyone else is going towards that. I need it. I want it because it's the shiny thing in the corner. And, going back to your point there, what might work for another organization isn't necessarily going to work for yours. Your customers might not be there. That's the most important thing. We should be thinking about our customers and putting them at the center. And a brilliant example of this is Clubhouse. I'm not sure if you had much experience with Clubhouse, but I found it I found it a really interesting psychological experiment. So me and a few others were really kind of just watching from the sidelines, like, look at everybody run after Clubhouse. Everyone now needs to be on Clubhouse because everyone's on Clubhouse. Its adoption rate went sky high really quickly. And brands were saying, we're on Clubhouse, come and join us on Clubhouse. Lots and lots of different things. Some kind of membership groups that I'm members of tried to switch everything that they'd done traditionally all to Clubhouse immediately. And lots of people couldn't even log in if they didn't have an iPhone. What happened? Who's using Clubhouse now? Many people? I'm not sure that anyone is still using Clubhouse.
I'm not there.
I know, exactly. That's what I mean. So everybody ran after the shiny Clubhouse. And within about 3 months, it was dead. There was, it was nothing. No one was there. And that was a brilliant example of running after the shiny without thinking about your strategy plan, thinking about your audience, and actually, testing the water a little bit before just jumping straight into something that now no one really uses and wasn't really widely adopted.
And the thing is, we should understand that I think it was Jay Bear that said this. At the end of the day, maybe you can understand, or you can realize that you don't even need to go to be on internet, because, for instance, you don't have the resources. And having in mind where is your audience or your
Yeah,
customers, and how much you will spend and how much resources you need to bring to go to that new platform, or even to go to one platform. If it's not profitable, you don't have to be there.
exactly.
And
Exactly. Always about your customer and your audience, 100%, and less about, you know, obviously factoring in what's possible for you as an organization, but should always be looking at where the customer is first. Because if you're in a completely different place where your target audience is, or where your product or service can be useful to your customers, then they're not going to know that you exist, and you're going to be spending lots of money targeting the wrong audience.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, and by the way, if you just join right now, I'm talking about this amazing book from Jenna Tiffany, which is there. Okay, and this is being a really nice conversation. And I remember some months ago I had a Neil Sheffer on my show, and one of the things that, and this is something that I'm working hard on this as well, is simplifying the communication,
Mhm.
because sometimes we have this tempting thing about needing to look smart and look intelligent instead
Yeah.
of being understood.
Mhm. Yes.
And one of the things he mentioned to me was, look, Marco, one of the things I made was I changed the name of my show or something, because he had a, and I think he keeps the whole podcast, but he brought a new one, which is, I think it's your marketing digital coach or something.
Okay.
And so there it is. Explain it
This is what
like
it is. Yeah.
absolutely. And this is something that it's a challenge as well, right? Because sometimes our egos, our need, our will, and also the pressure, because I think if we don't know to disconnect and to look with the right lenses to social media
Mhm.
platforms, we may be tempted and pressured and whatever, to try to look successful, smart, uh, rich. Why not?
Yeah.
And so but at the end of the day, what we should be, it's helpful and understandable by our target, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's such a valid point. And in my book, so hence why my book is called Marketing Strategy, because that is what it's about. And I could have gone with many other titles, but no, I wanted to go, really, this is what it is. And I actually have in the book about 10 common pitfalls, because I wanted to not only provide the framework of how to create a strategy and the stimulus and the ideas and the case studies, but also to talk about those things that I've come up against and my company's come up against, and to try and help other marketers avoid it or sympathize with who might have also had the same experience. And one of those, pitfall number 5, is communication failures. And also have about inconsistent messaging in there as well. But communication failures is really, and too much complexity is going along with your thoughts there. And I find it really funny, just because I have worked with lots of companies, and the majority of the time they overcomplicate everything, and either through language or through systems or through their own resourcing planning structure, whatever it is. And this one particular startup we've worked with, overcomplicated things on another scale, to a scale that I don't think I'd ever seen before. And we were brought in to help as their marketing team. And I was there to effectively become their marketing director and help build that into the company. And they had brand guidelines, which you think, okay, brilliant. They've got guidelines on how to use their brand. They didn't just have one copy and one document of brand guidelines. They had 20 variations of brand guidelines. So not only did they have brand guidelines that they had 20 versions of, it was a 20 to 30 page document each time. And for their color selection, for their branding, so these are the colors you can use for our brand, it had every single color of the rainbow in the document. So they effectively didn't choose one. So when they came to me and said, oh, we just got inconsistent display of our brand everywhere, it looks different everywhere we see it, I'm saying to them, yes, because you've got 20 different brand guidelines that are too long, too complicated, and you haven't chosen really any colors. You said use everyone. So that simplicity, really cost that organization, because people didn't know who they were. They had mixed messaging. It really caused a lot of damage. From a simple thing of brand guidelines, it created not only external to their customer base, not really understanding who they were and what they did, but also internally, the rest of the business didn't know how to represent the brand. They didn't know how to display the brand. They didn't know how to talk about the brand, all because of that over complex and not talking about things simply.
Yeah, and I think complexity, it's one of the main challenges, or overcoming complexity. And let me mention about, and one day if you come to the north of Portugal,
regularly.
One day maybe you can come and have dinner or lunch in a nice restaurant close to where I live. Okay,
Amazing,
maybe
yeah.
I can ask Pedro to join us as well.
That would be
We will
fun.
make a marketing meeting.
We will.
But the thing is, this is the most uncomplex restaurant. And again, because sometimes we have also this kind of these laws of marketing that you should follow, otherwise the skies will fall over your head. Like, for instance, diversity and accessibility, and this. Let me share about this restaurant, because this is something that I like to mention on my trainings. This is a restaurant that only has two main dishes: codfish, of course.
Obviously, bacalhau.
Yeah, bacalhau, and also I think it's cow ribbon.
Oh, ribs, pork ribs.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
cow, those big ones.
Oh, okay, yeah.
On desserts, I think on desserts they came with a wider range, because they all also, I think they had all just two or three as well. So talking about diversity, you can tell how diverse they are. Also, in Portugal, the better day for restaurants, those who usually they tend to work better, it's on Sunday. They are closed.
Brilliant.
Also, you only can lunch or have dinner there if you make a reservation. Okay, so as you can see, they are creating some difficulties. And it works. Also, they are a little bit expensive, but and I like to say this. Let me, by the way, this could be the next question, because I have my thought on this. If you have, let's have in mind the simple 4 P's: product, place, price, and promotion.
Mm-hmm. No, you had it.
I like to say this: if you have one which is completely outstanding, amazing, maybe the other you can kind of being not that good. And the
Mm,
product in this case, it's really awesome.
exceptional.
Yes, absolutely. So, your thought on this? Do you think that if we have one P that it's completely amazing, we can somehow neglect the others?
I don't think so. And that is where, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where, we're talking about the traditional models and the importance of the 4 and 7 Ps. And the reason why they were created was so that we didn't just focus on product, that we did think about the price. You're talking there about that restaurant. It's a little bit more expensive. Their client base is, to them, it might not be seen as expensive, or they're wanting to bring in certain clientele by having it at that price range. So they've thought about the price there, and they've naturally, obviously, spent a lot of time on the product. But in terms of their placement, the positioning of the restaurant, I'm not sure because I haven't been there before, but I'm presuming it's a fairly good location.
Not really.
No?
No,
Where is
I
it?
forgot that. Do you know there's a saying here in Portugal where Judah lost his boots, which
No, I've
is
never heard that
a
before.
place in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
We like to say where Judah lost the boots. So lost in the middle of nowhere. It's here. The restaurant is even away.
Wow.
Well,
How do you know it gets busy?
it's a really small village.
Okay.
It's not even close to the town. Okay,
Okay.
it's I don't know, maybe 10 minutes away from my home. I live in the countryside. Okay, and there it's even more countryside. And we see there people from Oporto, from Braga,
Okay.
wherever, that they come exclusive and with all this limitation I mentioned before,
Mm.
so you can understand how this case it's a nice case study
Yeah, of
when you
course.
talk about marketing.
It must be, the food must be amazing.
It
Really
is.
must be. So I'm guessing through their promotion, that do they actually do any marketing? Was it all word of mouth? Is it all
It's
experience from other
marketing.
people?
Again,
Mm.
having a nice product for me, it's marketing. It's the basic.
No, I totally agree. You've got to have a good product, but they
Yes,
seem to
absolutely.
be slightly
I
exceptional
don't
there.
think for instance they invest that much on the promotion P, for
Mm.
instance.
Hmm.
Okay. Also the placement or the place, it's not the most amazing. For instance, there's no even a highway close to that place. I
Wow.
think, let me see.
So
From
you really
here,
have to hunt this place
the
out.
highway from here to there, it's around 20 minutes. And on the other side, there's the highway from Oporto, Braga, and who goes to Valencia to the border, till the border with Spain.
Hmm.
It should be around 15 to 20 minutes as well. So there's this countryside road.
Wow. I really want to check this place out. I want to taste
Yeah,
the food.
believe me, you will like it.
Okay.
Believe me, trust me.
From experience.
It's impossible to talk with a Portuguese without talking about food.
I know, but the food is so good here. That's why.
Yeah, absolutely. And in
It's
the
too
north,
good,
it's even better. Let me.
really.
If you were in Oporto, you know how, and it's again, it's a nice case study how we work in the food uh, market, because, well, you're saying right now, and for instance, when I talk with Spanish people, they tend to tell to me. I think if you came to the north, you witnessed this, that you ask, okay, I want a steak, and you have a huge steak.
Yeah.
So this is something typical here as well. Okay, and it's something that it's about marketing as well, but maybe we can talk about this in another show.
Maybe.
Just to finish, can you give us three reasons why do you think this book it's the right choice? Not for me, for the audience, because for me it's already a nice choice. Three reasons why this book has to be on our bookshelf and
Yeah,
be used.
sure. Yeah, definitely. So this book is for anybody, a student, a existing marketer, business owner who is involved in marketing, or as we've talked a lot about product today, that is involved in marketing. And this is your guidebook effectively to help you either start,
Indeed.
continue, or begin your journey with marketing. It also has all the tools and frameworks. So I've actually applied all of the tools and frameworks. They're not just included as this is the tool. I've applied them in how I've launched and promoted my own book. And there's loads of case studies in here. There's interviews with the likes of MailChimp, who've just been sold for $11 billion. And there's other smaller campaigns in there as well, from charities as well as other businesses and global organizations. And finally, it's a book to keep with you. It's not a book that's going to date. It's a book that will stay with you. It's a great investment. It's a book that you can dip into as and when you need it, which is why I've written it in the way I have. And you will have that full strategy framework to be able to work from. So you won't feel that you're maybe missing something out or you're not quite sure. You've got a huge resource here to be able to use and dip in and out of.
Good. Well, I have to make another question, extra question, please. because another thing, and you just mentioned, and I realized this when I look at the book. This is an evergreen book, and this for me it's really important. Did you because this is a struggle as well by these days when we talk about marketing books, and mostly when we go more on social media platforms. You start writing today and tomorrow it's kind of outdated.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
this was a kind of a requirement for you that the book was evergreen.
Yeah, so for me, marketing strategy doesn't ever go out of date. The core principles of creating a strategy are always the same. And so I wanted the book to be one that if you looked at it in 10 years' time, it would still be relevant. I might have another edition where I updated case studies and examples, for example, but the core fundamentals and structure wouldn't change to the book. And I'm not sure I could write another one. So I wanted to write one that I was, I spent 2 years writing this book. And so I wanted it to be something that I could look back on and think, yes, that's still relevant today. And this is still going to be useful to everybody.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Jenna Tiffany on there, on Twitter at Jenna Tiffany. You can also, those are probably the two main places, but also my company website, letstalkstrategy.co.uk. And I'm also available on there as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jenna. It was a pleasure to have you here.
No, thanks so much for having me. So great to talk to you.
It was a pleasure. And by the way, for those of you who are looking, you have the link in the comments. Or if you're watching on Amazon, you can just hit that product highlighted in the carousel, the book from Jenna, Marketing Strategy. And believe me, you will love it because it has so many good information. Okay? My word.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. I will be live next week again with another episode. Till then, have a nice week. Behave and take care. Bye bye.